Yeah, thanks very much for coming to chat to us about your experiences while making Death at a Funeral. You made a short initially. Tell us about how that came about and what your aspirations for that short were.
Sure. Well, my plan was always to... I'd written Death at a Funeral as a low-budget, kind of very contained movie that I could direct myself, and it could be very easily produced. I was thinking of a budget of like £100,000 or something like that. So in order to get that made, I thought I'd do a short, take a couple of scenes and make a short film out of it, just to show that it could be done, and you know, as a kind of a promo for the feature film. And so we got like actors that were mostly friends or friends of friends, and kind of pulled everyone together. It cost a very small amount, you know, we spent a very small amount of money, and just, you know, shot for a day, and yeah, just did one of those promo things, and you know. And
how how was the promo received? Did it in fact open the doors that you hoped, and you know, did it all work?
Well, it was really interesting because I mean, the short answer is no, but in a weird kind of way that was, it was all sort of fortuitous but in a different way than I expected. So what happened was that my script ended up going out in America before we actually even shown anyone the promo. And it got picked up and actually by a company in America who wanted to fund and make it.
Right.
So before I'd even actually done anything with it, that was happening, and then I had to make a very fast decision about whether I was prepared to not direct it, because that was a kind of a given, considering that situation, and that was the decision I went with.
Right. And at that point, did you have representation, or did the short help get you representation? How did you get an agent in order to get into that position?
The way I got an agent actually was, so we've got to go back a bit. My first film was a film called Caffeine.
It's all about time travel, isn't
I know,
it today? Going back in time.
So my first film was called Caffeine, and that was again a situation where I was planning to direct it. It was a low budget film. It was very contained, and again it got seen by an American producer who wanted to make it. He had like $1.5 million to make a film, but his condition was that he wanted to direct it. So, being completely skint and you know, obviously just having the offer of getting my film made, I went with that, and he shot the film. And as a result, I got out to America. I got a manager, an agent, a lawyer, and you know, all that kind of business. And so by the time I'd written Death at a Funeral, I already had that in place, and it was actually my manager who gave the script to someone, and then it sort of, and that was how Death at a Funeral got picked up.
Right. What is it like being a Brit working in LA then? I mean, with all that heritage, you know, you're out there with your accent, doing your thing. What's it like?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're not the only person out there with an accent. There's about 1 million English people, but there is still a little bit of favoritism, I think, towards the English. There's still that weird sense that English people are a bit clever. More than that, I think it's like, I definitely found that when I would go to America, and like, you know, I started off going on for like 2-week bursts, and people would get very excited just by the idea of you being someone that's coming from a foreign country into their world. So, you know, so like meeting people were very keen to meet, and you'd get meetings that within a few days that might otherwise take weeks or even months. So it just makes it that little bit special and that little bit interesting. And I actually went for 6 months last year. I spent 6 months in LA, and it was like the first 2 weeks everyone wanted to meet. It was very busy, like absolutely packed with meetings. Then there's about 5 months where nothing much happens, and then the last 2 weeks I'm about to leave and everyone wants to meet again. So it was very interesting.
So the takeaway there is make it look like you're only there for a short period of time, which kind of precipitates
and perhaps
people.
Never leave. Yeah. Just hide away in your little basement, and then yeah, then just pop up every now and again.
So just looking back at the Caffeine and the first iteration of Death at a Funeral, it occurs to me that, you know, obviously on the first film, the 1.5 million he wants to direct, you have a choice as a filmmaker. You know, opportunity to make it, but you give up the job of directing, and then it kind of happened to you all over again. But it was, if it had been at 1.5 million, maybe you'd have been able to kind of haggle your way into it. But it was what, a $7 million film or something like that. 10 million. So again, they're not going to take that risk on you, are they? At that point, how do you feel about that? And what is your advice to filmmakers who may find themselves in a similar situation? You know, either take the money and get it produced, or hold on. Maybe you'll hold on, but maybe it won't happen.
It's such a difficult dilemma, because if you want to be a filmmaker and you want to be a director, it's the most difficult thing, because on the one hand you're dealing with a situation that is going to increase your status and increase your, you know, and also I've done, you know, 3 films effectively with 3 directors of varying skills, and you know, but it's always been a really interesting learning experience as an aspiring director as well. So you have that, and you know, there's an amazing amount that you learn, but at the same time you are giving up your work into the hands of someone else who may or may not do what you want them to do with it, and that's really hard. I'm still doing that with scripts, and I still find it hard. It's got to be down to your own sense of how you see your career and what you want to do. I mean, my sense was that your career is long. It's such a difficult, tough industry that I feel like you have to take your opportunities when they're presented. I'm also very impatient, so the idea of sitting around for 3 years waiting to scramble the money together to make my film doesn't necessarily appeal. I want it made. I want to see it. I want to move on to the next thing. You know, I've got other scripts that I'm writing, so I'm sort of turning my attention to them. So yeah, it's a really tough dilemma. It's something I struggle with, you know, something I struggle with when I go to bed at night and I think, what would have happened if I'd held out and directed Death at a Funeral? And you never know.
I guess there's no way to know, is there really?
Well, no, it's impossible. But there's, you know, the thing is, there's all those stories of Sylvester Stallone's like holding out and doing Rocky, and you know, and resisting all the temptations and all the offers, and getting the part, getting the Oscar, you know, everything turning out rosy. There's the Ricky Gervais, the Steve Merchant story, what they did with The Office, which was also massively a massively good move for them. There's Quentin Tarantino, who sort of did sort of similar things, and you know, so it does work in certain instances. But my sense is that there are, for every one of those instances where it works and you make that decision, you pull it off, you know, there's how many thousands that it doesn't work. And you know, I didn't want to be sitting there thinking, shit, I passed up an opportunity. And
sure.